Okay, so this video is 9.6, which is the quadratic formula. So this is going to be the last lesson that you guys will be learning in Chapter 9. Okay, so what is the standard form for a quadratic formula? Standard form, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so in this, we're going to be using our a, b, and c again. So why are we learning a different method? So we learn a different method in case there are times where we can't factor, or we can't just solve it and take the square root of it, okay? So we can't solve it using one of our other methods, so regularly. Sorry, this is so messy looking. Okay, so what does the quadratic formula look like? It's going to be y equals negative b plus or minus, which means the same thing as plus sign and a minus sign, the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a.
Attention, please.
Okay, so this equation will be given to you on the ECA, but I would really like for you guys to memorize it so that it becomes a lot easier. When we start plugging things in, we have to make sure that we add parentheses in all of these areas. Otherwise, there's a good possibility you get it wrong. Okay, so let's try this. So my a equals 1, my b equals 1, and my c equals negative 2. Okay, so my equation was negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, so I'm going to, since I can do this, I'm going to erase the spots and replace them. So my b here is going to be 1, and then my b here is going to be 1. My a is also 1. And my c is negative 2. My a on the bottom here is 1. Okay, so it's basically just replacing. Okay, the hardest part now is just going to be simplifying, because some of these can be kind of difficult to simplify. So 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 2. So that's going to be negative 4 times 1, which is negative 4, times negative 2, so plus 8. And then 2 times 1 on the bottom is just 2. Okay, so then this is y equals, or x equals, sorry. Messed that up. It's supposed to be x equals. Okay, so then we got x equals negative 1 plus or minus 1 plus 8 is 9. Now we got x equals negative 1. The square root of 9 is 3, so we got plus or minus 3 over 2. Okay, and then I'm going to erase this so that I have room to keep writing. Y equals, now we have to split it up. So because we have this plus or minus, and we have to split it up to be able to reduce it. So negative 1 plus 3 over 2, and y equals negative 1 minus 3 over 2. Okay, so we add on the top, so negative 1 plus 3 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Negative 1 minus 3 on the top is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Okay, so these ones, my x-intercept is at 1 and negative 2. So it crosses my x-axis at 1 and negative 2. Okay, so a equals 1, b equals negative 1 this time, and c equals negative 12. Okay, so we got our negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, so my negative b, when I put a negative 1 in for a negative b, it changes to a positive. So we got a positive 1. Okay, so but when I put a negative 1 in here, it's going to be a negative 1. My a is 1, so we can replace both of these a's with 1. And my c is negative 12. Okay, so we got 1 plus or minus negative 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times negative 12 is positive 48. 2 times 1 on the bottom is 2. So we got x equals this so far. So x equals 1 plus or minus the square root. 1 plus 48 is 49. Square root of 49 is 7. Oop. Okay, when you take the square root of it, it disappears. If I'm taking the square root of 49 to get 7, my answer is not going to still be the square root of 7. So once I take the square root, it disappears. Okay, so now we got to split it up into our two questions here. So we got x equals 1 plus 7 over 2, and x equals 1 minus 7 over 2. So on top, 1 plus 7 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 1 minus 7 is negative 6. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So my x-intercepts are 4 and negative 3. Okay, I don't have my equal to 0, so I have to move that. So to get it over to the other side, we got to subtract it. So my new thing is x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. Okay, so now you could look to see if you could factor it. This one is factorable, but we are going to go ahead and use our quadratic formula. So our a is 1, b is 4, and c is negative 5. So our equation, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So let's do some replacing. So my b's in this case are 4. My a's are 1. And my c is negative 5. So I got x equals, I'm going to change colors, negative 4 plus or minus, 4 squared is 16, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, times negative 5 is positive 20. All over, 2 times 1 is 2. So now I'm going to go up to the right side here. So we got x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root. 16 plus 20 is 36. And we got 2 on the bottom. X equals negative 4 plus or minus. Square root of 36 is just 6. Okay? And now we got to split it up. So we got our x equals negative 4 plus 6 over 2. And x equals negative 4 minus 6 over 2. So negative 4 plus 6 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. Negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10, so we get negative 5. So our x-intercepts for this are 1 and negative 5. So it's crossing my x-intercept at 1 and negative 5. So if I'm asking for the solutions, the roots or the zeros, it's 1 and negative 5. Okay, this one, you can actually do something first. What you could do is find a GCF. So both of these have 3 in common. So I could pull my GCF out. Okay? So then I could send this. If I'm trying to get rid of that 3, I would normally divide both sides by 3. So I'd get x squared minus 9 equals 0. Well, now I can solve this regularly. Okay, so I could do x squared equals 9 and square root both of them. So x equals plus or minus 3. Okay, if I wanted to use the quadratic formula for this, I could start with, I got my 3x squared minus 27 equals 0. So my a would be 3, my b in this case would be 0, and my c would be negative 27. So you just have to make sure that you have that b equals 0 on that. Okay, so in this, a equals 1, b equals 8, and c equals 11. So we got our negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's do some replacing. My b's are 8. My a's are 1. and my C is 11. Okay, so we got negative 8 plus or minus square root. 8 squared is 64. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times 11 is negative 44. And then 2 times 1 is just 2. So we got our x equals negative 8 plus or minus. So we got 64 minus 44, which is 20, over 2. Okay, we're going to split this up. So we got x equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of, plus the square root of 20 over 2. And x equals negative 8 minus the square root of 20 over 2. Okay, so in this situation on the ECA, they could ask you to simplify the square root of 20. Okay, so I'm going to show you that so that you guys know how to do it, but it could give you multiple different answers here on the ECA. You just have to understand how to get each one. So we know the square root of 20 is 5 and 4 and 2 and 2. So if we make our radical jail 5 times 2 times 2, circle them, the pairs, kill 1, 1 escapes, it'd be 2 square root 5. Okay, so that could change to that. But what we're going to do is plug into your calculator negative 8 plus the square root of 20. So you're going to type this into your calculator and you're going to press the equal sign. Then you're going to divide it by 2. Recording a video and I feel uncomfortable when you're in here. Recording a video for what? My kids. I'll be done in like 5 minutes. So then you divide it by 2 and you get your answer. So your answer for this should be negative 1.76. Now you got to do negative 8 minus the square root of 20. Take what it equals. And then divide it by 2. So you should get negative 6.2, and then I'm going to round it, so 6.24. So this is the spots where it's crossing my x-axis at. Okay, it's not set equal to 0, so we got a minus our 3 over. So we'll have 2x squared minus 7x minus 3 equals 0. So my a equals 2, my b equals negative 7, and my c equals negative 3. So we got negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, so my b's in this situation are negative 7s. My a's are 2. And my c is negative 3. Okay, so 2 negatives make a positive in this front, so it's going to be x equals, I'm going to change colors so you can see it, positive 7 plus or minus, negative 7 squared is 49, and then we got our negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8, times negative 3, which is 24, and then we got our 2 times 2 on the bottom, which is 4. So we got x equals 7 plus or minus, we got 49 plus 24, which is 73, all over 4. Okay, so we're going to rewrite it in our 2 steps. So 7 plus the square root of 73 over 4, and x equals 7 minus the square root of 73 over 4. Okay, so when you type it in your calculator, what you're going to do for this first one is get 7 plus the square root of 73, press enter, and then press divided by 4. So we'll get 3.88, or 3.89, sorry. Okay, now 7 minus the square root of 73, you'll get your answer, and then divide that by 4. So then this one is negative 0.39. So those are my 2 spots where I cross my x-axis. They're my solutions, they're my roots, they're my zeros. The reason that we have to press enter and then divide our number by 4 is because this 4 is divided by everything. Okay, it's not just divided by something specific. Okay, so we have to figure out what 7 plus the square root of 73 is, and take that divided by 4 because that 4 is divided by the 7 and the square root of 73. Okay, so let's try this last one. It's not equal to 0, so we got to subtract this 10x over. So we got x squared minus 10x plus 13 equals 0. It's got to be in standard form. Okay, so a equals 1, b equals negative 10, and c equals 13. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So my b's are negative 10, my a's are 1, and my c's are 13, okay? So then we would get x equals positive 10 plus or minus the square root. Negative 10 squared is 100. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 13 is negative 52, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. So then we get x equals 10 plus or minus the square root. 100 minus 52 is 48, all over 2, okay? So your answer could be simplified. You could simplify that square root of 48 into radical jail. But otherwise, we would split it up into 10 plus the square root of 48 divided by 2, and x equals 10 minus the square root of 48 over 2. Okay, so we put in our calculator 10 plus the square root of 48, press enter, and then divide that by 2. So this one is x equals 8.46, and then 10 minus the square root of 48, press enter, divide that by 2, and this is x equals 1.54. So that's where it would be my x-intercept crossing my x-axis.